All right, so some people want to say are asking me questions like, "Hey, what's your work area look like?" Well, it's not the pinnacle of cleanliness here, but I know where everything is. So there's my variac, soldering iron, bunch of tubes, got parts bin up here, the all-important stereo, got my scope up there, tone gen, dummy load, got my light bulb tester there. This is my kind of my test and somewhat of an assembly bench. I take these nice little things for your drawers in the kitchen. I stack some common tools in there that I use. Over here, I've got more of assembly bench. I've got a lot of small parts in here, resistors, caps, you know, you name it. Everything you need to build amps. And book, laptop, everything else, some spare parts, heat gun. Big toolbox for fooling with cars. Another box of tubes. Here's the deluxe project that I've been kind of trying to fool with in my spare time. Rest of the shop. Got wood tools, everything I need to make a cabinet. Got the all-important drill press over there, air compressor. So this is my setup. This is where it all happens, and we'll move on. Okay, so we're going to cover a little bit about hooking up these wires, these lead wires here to the tube sockets. So people ask me in private messages, they say, "Mike, how in the world do you get your wiring so neat?" Well, a lot of it has to do with all the prep work that we did earlier in the other videos, but coming through the board like that we're doing certainly helps this. What I basically do is I'll start at one side, and for instance, I know that you know, I'm going to pin 3 here, so I will hold it in place. I know what I want it to look like. I'll clip it, strip it, and solder it. Now, the beauty of using these standoffs and having this board, if you can go a little bit long, and then you can tuck it up underneath a little bit, and you can make it look right. So I just say, take your time. Nothing worse than a big old messy amp, and you got problems, and then you're trying to figure out what's going where and what's hooked up, and then you got noise issues and everything else. So take a little extra time, make them nice and clean and sanitary, and I think it'll pay off in the end. Another quick blurb. Essential tool in my mind for doing this stuff are these hemostats. Man, it's great. You can clamp on the stuff, you can move it around, you can use it to hold wires while you solder. I think it's just it's something that any amp builder just cannot do without. So okay, so one word I want to say about soldering here. I know most of us know how to solder, but you'll notice how these tubes sockets here have this long slot. Don't just stick the wire on the edge of it and just solder it to the edge. Fill that whole thing up. If you leave a hole there where your wire is, that gives the wire and the solder a place to go and vibrate and break and have a bad joint. So fill that hole up. It takes a little practice to get it done. You know, get enough heat on there. And there it is. Well, not quite. Let's see. It's hard to see with the phone in my way here. When you get through soldering one wire, take your nippers, trim as you go, just like that. Those little pieces will go gather them up, and now you got a nice solid joint there. It's not going to come off. You can get a little tug with your wire, straighten it out, and get it where you want it, and then move on. All right, so I know I talked about this once before, but this is important. You know, you get a lot of wires going here, and you think you know where they go. Take your leads, turn on your continuity tester, and just check them as you go in. Just check it there, give it a little test. You say, okay, I know that's my guy, right? And before you solder it, just check them. It'll save you time later and lots of frustration from troubleshooting your amp. Okay, so I want to show you another thing that I do that is a little different than some people. On your heater pins, they're 4 and 5. What a lot of guys did, Fender did, is they kind of give those guys a twist around and mash them together and put the wire in between them. I don't really like that. I've had the pins break before because I guess I was too rough on them. And it's hard to get 2 wires sometimes through there, and it's just generally a pain in the butt. So I'm going to show you how I do. Okay, so what I do is I start off with a piece of this bus wire, kind of like we used early on in part 1 where we were putting ground straps on the and tying all the turrets together on the board. So I'll take this little guy, just a little piece of wire, and I'll grab the tip of it like so. Then I give it a 90 degree. Okay, and then I grab it and I make another 90 degree. Now we have this. All right. And I take my nippers and I cut it off a little bit longer like so. And I now have a piece that looks like this. Now I grab it with my my forceps here. Let me grab the camera. And I will take this guy. Hang on. My camera work is horrible. I apologize for that. Alright, so I take this little thingy that we just made and I put it through pins 4 and 5. And it looks something like that right there. Alright, so I lay it in there. Now what I'm going to do, give me a little pointer here, I'm going to come by and lightly solder this end. Then I'm going to clip that off. I'm going to wrap this around so it's going to basically be a connector between there and solder it through. So let me do that and then I'll show you the finished product. Have it. So I don't know if you can kind of see in there, but we have room now in each one of those pins to connect a heater wire. And boy, does that make life easy. So, you know, on pin 9, you still have to deal with 2 wires in there, but it's just a little easier on 4 and 5. It's nice and solid. You don't weaken the pins by twisting them and bending them around. And I know it takes a little bit, you know, a little more time to do it this way. Again, none of these things I do are hard and fast. It's just kind of the way that I do them. And you can kind of take that for what it's worth. Okay, so we've got a little further on the wiring here. Still got to do the front panel with the pots and of course the back panel, everything, pilot, get the face plates on, but we're moving along here. So I'm just going to show you a little bit of what I've done. Right here, instead of crossing through this V2 here with the wires like you might see on a lot of layouts or schematics, I just kind of make these circles around here. I don't know, I don't like ramming stuff through the center of the tube. I've done them both ways. I just prefer this method, so that's what I do. Negative feedback right here. A couple of the tremolo and reverb wires coming off. Here's V3 and the phase inverter there. No heaters yet, but as you can see, I've done the little bridge there across pin 4 and 5. I did that on all the tubes. Coincidentally, I did that also on pin 1 and 8 on the 6V6s on this amp, where they tie together. I basically do the same method as I did on the other tube sockets there. So anyway, rectifier's wired up. Got my grounds going on. And we're moving right along in this. I'm waiting on a couple of parts, and then I will press forward with this amp. But at this point, we're getting most of the hard stuff's out of the way. I'll say this again, like so many guys have said before, on these output tube or output transformer plate wires, cut them long. There's a 50-50 chance it's going to be right. I know you've heard that 1,000 times. It's true. If this guy starts squalling and making a bunch of noise when you turn it up, just reverse those guys, check it again when it's good, cut them to length and solder them. Alright, so there's the progress so far, and it's coming right along. Okay, so here's another little thing I like to do. I take some old fiberboard that I saved from, you know, old builds and these bottom plates like this, and I hang on to that stuff. And I like to cut me a piece. This one here is 2 1/4 by 2 inches, and I lay it in there and mark it underneath, and put this guy here, and then the hole lines up as you can see, and put a bolt and a nut on there. And what's kind of nice is now you have a shield for your pilot light. Keep that guy from touching and grounding out. It's a little something I do. It's not part of the plan, but again, you know, just showing you the little things that I do on my amps. All right, and there it is in place. So what I used to do is I used to use some silicone in there, but I didn't really like it that much. I never felt like it was holding good, and the hole's already in the chassis, so I figured, heck, why not? So that guy's not going anywhere. It's there forever. and I just think it just makes it that much cleaner. So when you do get your pilot assembly in there, let me see if I have it real quick here. And that guy, let's see here. You kind of stick it in there like so. As you can see, the bottom end of it, you can't touch. I don't know if you can see my big old hand in the way. Kind of like so. Kind of protects it. So anyway, enough of that. Hey, another little thing I do, kind of getting this prepped here. I don't do this on all amps, but I'm going to start doing it more and more. 200 ohm resistors. This is going to be artificial center tap there for the filaments. I just took a piece of black Teflon there, soldered it to the resistors, all in prep, and then I'm going to put a piece of shrink here, shrink it on there, and then I'll cut this to length and I'll put a little ground lug on it, and it'll just make it real easy instead of trying to twist everything around there, and just make it nice and clean and simple. Anyway, a little something that I do, just thought I'd show y'all. There's the finished product. 200 ohms, spaghetti tubing. I think this is one place in the amp that this is really important, because man, if those guys short out to ground, you're going to have all kinds of issue. But anyway, very simple thing, but anyway, that's the way I do it.